All right, what is going on, people? Welcome back to Unfiltered. Hope that you are well. A reminder, you can get us everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. Also, artist formerly known as Twitter, at Casey Stern. Follow, jump up into the bio, and get onto the YouTube channel where you may be watching now. You can get and subscribe to all the content. 264 episodes deep, conversations and interviews, and much, much more. A lot of things coming up your way here over the next couple of weeks. This one, not a full episode, little bit self-serving, but I got to hit this logo behind me with the Islanders because I just, the roller coaster of emotions that I get with this team over the last 4+ decades, I can't deal with it anymore. I can't. I mean, I've been up to here. I don't have much hair left, and I'm losing what I got left watching this team. It is so predictable that what goes up must come down. I'm going to get into the reason why, but here we go again. Beaten up by the Rangers, lost to them at the Stadium Series, and sat there and lost a game where they were up 5-2, lost 6-5. No business losing that game. And here you are now just basically getting outclassed and outplayed up and down the ice through 3 periods outside of Bo Horvat. Nothing whatsoever to sit there and look at positively. They've dropped now 4 straight, including the one that they dropped just yesterday. Before this one, in overtime, and away you go. Here are the Islanders. They're just outside of a playoff spot. They're 1 point, as I do this here on a Sunday on St. Patrick's Day in the evening. They're 1 point behind the Red Wings with 73 points. Wings got 74. And already Tampa Bay now up to 78 and is creating some distance. And there's distance between them and the Flyers, and it's only getting bigger. And why does this happen? Coming off of 4 or 5 wins in a row, where you just know going to drop 4 or 5 games in a row. And as much as I will continue to state that Lane Lambert was a mess and had to go, and if you watch the team enough and you see the way they play enough, you know that he wasn't good enough. And I will continue to say, you can go back to the pod where I did it when Patrick Watt was named the coach of this team, that it was a godsend because he's not going to stand for losing. Here's a guy who's not going to sit there and fall asleep at the wheel and be okay with and not hold the team accountable for the fact that the team is playing like garbage. He's going to expect to win and win at a high level. That, though, is something we got to understand is not about this year solely. It's not about this playoff push solely. It's about years and years, hopefully, to come, in which this team is able to get back to where they were the last time they had a guy who held them accountable and had an idea of what it took to win, and his name, Barry Trotz, when they sat there just a game away twice, not once, but twice, in an Eastern Conference final from getting to a Stanley Cup. Second time sitting there in a 1-0 game where you just, that second run still stinks. But why are they here? Why is this team this way? There's a lot to get into. Has Ilya Sorokin been as good as he needs to be? No. Ilya Sorokin has not been as good as he needs to be. Has Ilya Sorokin been one of the best 5, I would say even 10 goalies this year? In my opinion, no. Does it mean he doesn't have the talent to do it? He still has the talent to do it. Does it mean, if you ask me, is he still one of the best goaltenders in the league? Would I say he's still one of the best goaltenders in the league? Ilya Sorokin is absolutely still one of the best goalies in the league, but he hasn't played like it. What's the reasoning for it? Is it because he faced too many shots early in the season, night after night, getting peppered with 45, 50 shots, facing more than anybody in the sport, playing too often, especially when Varley was down earlier this season, playing game in, game out, game in, back-to-backs didn't matter. They didn't have 3 goaltenders to play, and Varley was out. Maybe there's a little bit of all of that. Maybe it's just downtime. We saw Igor Shesterkin not play well for half of this season, and we know what he's capable of. Should be a perennial Vezina candidate, as should Sorokin be, who finished second a year ago to Linus Ullmark. He hasn't been as good, but it's not the reason why, even if you could pick and pluck, and you can, a goal in this game and other games where, look, they wouldn't have blown leads if you just make that important stop. It's been missing this year from him, that one big save that puts you in a better spot, right? That gets you to the next play, the next shift. It hasn't been there as much. He hasn't stood on his head and carried them as much as many times this year. But he's not the problem. The problem is the same problem it's always been. Even when Lane Lambert was there, I said it was more so this problem than him, and that is the personnel. Or as they say in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, if you get this reference, I really appreciate you. The personnel, the roster, the talent level is not good enough. It's not good enough. And you can't put Bo Horvat in that category. He's been brilliant. Now sitting there on the cusp of 30 goals with 2 more in this game. He's got what, 60 points or somewhere around there. He's had a really, really good season. Has it been the dynamic scoring season he had a year ago before they got him? He went in the All-Star game and he had all those goals. No, not necessarily, but I think you got to give the guy a ton of credit. And I think he's played well in big spots. He's been accountable. You go back to the loss, what about a week ago where he said it's on us, and we don't hear enough of that from this team. Certainly never used to hear any of it from the coaching. I think Patrick Waugh and his mindset and his systems and his knowledge and his acumen are going to come into play, but they're going to come into play more with a full season and full seasons to come. We knew that when he came in the middle of the year. The problem right now is that when you're a mediocre team, when you're a team who's got a sort of okay roster and you play sort of okay hockey, you're going to win and then you're going to lose. You're going to go on streaks where you're in 5 out of 6, and then you're going to sit there and go 5-1 in the next 6. And that's what the Islanders do. Have they left a lot of points on the doorstep with the blown leads? Yes. Have they left a lot of points on the doorstep because they don't have Franz Nielsen anymore in shootouts? I mean, I wish we could just kept that guy for all these years in the roster just for that, because of how bad and how many points they've left from that. Yeah, maybe they're in a different spot. But overall, overarching, this roster, it ain't good enough. And that is why this team is here in this spot. And that's why they're up and down. And that's what needs to change. And they need significant turnover. Now, ironically, sadly, Brock Nelson, who's a year away from being a UFA, and he's a guy who's got a lot of trade value if they wanted to do that in the offseason. And that's one of the places you could look if you wanted to really kind of turn things around. I think he should have been signed long-term. And I think, he's a guy who needs to stay. He's part of the solution, not the problem. Horvat, solution, not the problem. Matt Barzal, more in the solution category series, obviously, than the problem in most of this year. The issue is the consistency around him. Now, I'm not splitting up him and Horvat the way that they've played, and I think it's a mistake. I don't think it's any secret why Brock Nelson's sitting there racking up assists playing on Horvat's line too. Bo Horvat not getting enough credit for that. Matt Barzal is not Sidney Crosby. You can't put Pascal Dupuis and Brian Rust and Chris Kunitz and whoever the hell else you want on his line and just anybody going to do well. And to be honest with you, not many guys are that way. Yeah, we had the John Tavares situation with the PA Parentos and, I mean, how many other guys, Brad Boyes even with a good season, and others that he made better. Certainly Matty Molson on that list as well, Kyle Okposo, and best of luck to Kyle in Florida after the trade. I think we had that. Matt Barzal makes guys around him better, but if you're going to have him off on a wing where he's a center, and now J.G. Pajot, who I happen to like, who probably needs to go, if we're being quite honest, because how many of these guys, you can't have Casey Cizikas and J.G. Pajot and 7 other guys that are just sitting there and they're in the third line kind of scenario on your roster. You got too much age. You don't have enough speed. And when you got, Anders Lee, I love Anders, the captain. I get it, right? I love Anders. I wish he was sitting there on the third line and scoring some goals occasionally when he gets hot and doing captain things, but he gets paid a lot of money and he can't be on the first line with J.G. Pajot and Barzal because Barzal needs better players around him than that. And that's why the dominance he had this season was when he's sitting there skating on the ice at the same time. Go look at how many goals and predominantly how many points came when he had Bo Horvat and Noah Dobson or both on the ice. Because those are skilled players. You got to have skilled players. Like Simon Holmstrom, that's fine. Like Casey Cizikas, that's fine. We know what Clutter can do and can't do. Matt Martin, look, I love Matt Martin. I love that Matt Martin's been on this team. Still, to me, one of the worst losses of the year was when they blew a lead, and he's sitting there with few seconds and ticks on the clock left in the game, can't clear the puck, had no business being on the ice in one of the final days of Lane Lambert's tenure. Matt Martin needs to go. Cal Clutterbuck should have gone. Casey Cizikas, okay, fine, but you can't then have Pajot too. You need younger players. You need faster players. They need players with more skill. The Islanders need to put more skill at the forward spot. Now on defense, again, and look, Patrick Waugh, I'm not trying to get on him yet, really, for anything, because it is so new in the process and because he carries enough cachet being Patrick Waugh that might give him some time. But these line changes are the obsessive line changes doesn't work. Okay. Doing like the Bobby Valentine way of handling a lineup when you're sitting there in hockey, it doesn't work. These guys need to build chemistry. And on this team, you don't have a good, I understood why they put Nelson with Barzal and Horvat, because you don't have that many players that are that good offensively. So maybe we'll score goals with these guys and we'll prevent them with the rest of the team when they're on the ice. Maybe that's how we'll play. But the line changes, to me, you tell me, you're an Isles fan, it's too much. Too much. And at the end of the day, it is happening for the same reason that I'm telling you the losses are happening. And that's not because of Ilya Sorokin, even though he has not been nearly as good. Not been terrible, but he hasn't been nearly as good. It is happening because you're trying to rob Peter and pay Paul, because you do not have enough depth of offense on this roster and of skating in this roster. You can't possess the puck because you don't have guys who can skate with the puck. And the Rangers were skating circles around you. Go back and watch the first 10 minutes of this game. You don't need to watch anything else to know that it was going to end up kind of like the score ended up at 5-2. No matter what. Because this team is not as talented as that team is, and that clearly showed. They need to have some turnover. They're going to have to figure this out. And on defense, I mean, clearly they need more depth, and they need guys who can move the puck and get out of the zone, because it is amazing how many times the Islanders get stuck watching circles get skated around them. And long are the days where we sat there and watched shift after shift, churn and burn inside forechecking in the offensive zone. Go back to the Barry Trotz. That doesn't happen much anymore. And certainly the identity line, no longer the identity of this team. The identity of this team is kind of mediocrity. They've got some good seasons. Dobson's been a bright spot, clearly, and we love what he's becoming. We talk about Barzal, about Horvat. How about what Brock Nelson continues to be and get better and better? And he really is one of the better two-way players in the league. Doesn't get credit for it, but there's not enough depth, and they need to fix it. And the big problem is, and the last thing I'll say is that when you sit there in any of these sports, and I've covered them, and you hang with a team that's won, and you try and use it as an excuse for why you don't want to spend money or why you're not going to make changes because, hey, we trust our guys. We trust our guys get you to a golf course. That's where it gets you. You know what gets you winning? Not being complacent. You know what gets you winning? Not thinking you're good enough. Always thinking you need to get better. That's why, the Houston Astros continue to add. Last year, we could get Verlander back. Now maybe they'll talk to Blake Snell. They always need to find somebody else, something else. Got to get better, got to get better, got to get better, even if you're near the top. The Islanders sat there and rested on what happened those 2 years without Barry Trotz, sans the coach who got them there, by the way, and then decided, well, every year they're going to sell some, we don't need to do anything, and another deadline when they don't do anything, and another offseason when they don't do anything, and now they're stuck with all this money, very little cap space, and it is a problem, a big-time problem. If you're an Islander fan right now, they're probably at some point going to win 3 out of 4. They may make the playoffs. I'm not saying they won't. They may. They may just have it be that the last week is the run they go on to go beat out, depending upon how Detroit and Washington and these other teams play, and get that last spot. And where's that going to get us? To the same place however many years outside of Barry Trotz has gotten you, which is your ass kicked in the first round and sent home. And then Lou Lamoriello saying, well, I still think that this core is good enough. Depending upon how big you think the core is, maybe it is. If you want to tell me it's Dobson and Barzal and Nelson and Sorokin and one or two other guys, then yeah, I'm with you. You go beyond that, you're nuts. Not enough. Not enough talent. Your thoughts if you're an Isle fan, because it's driving me absolute bananas. Can't deal with it anymore. Unfiltered on the Isles. As always, we are presented by our good friends at BetOnline.